Hey everybody, we're looking at number 2. Rupa has a wooden chest in the shape of a rectangular prism. She plans to cover the outside of the chest with colorful paper. What is the total surface area in square feet to be covered in paper? Now, this is not a cube, even though initially you might look at it and say, kind of looks like a cube, but it's not. And the reason why we know it's not a cube is because look, the dimensions are all different from each other. So it is a rectangular prism, and they tell us that it is. So we're going to use the formula for rectangular prism to figure this out. Or if you prefer to just list out all the dimensions, front, back, top, bottom, left, right, you can do it that way. But let's commit to taking each of the dimensions and declaring them as being either the length, the width, or the height. So how about we call this the length? How about we call this the width? And let's call this the height. And we'll substitute those values into the formula. I might have to make this formula just a little bit bigger so we can stretch it out. All right, so next, let's write down surface area equals, and then let's put in the values. So for the length, we're saying that that's 3 times the width, we're saying that that's 1.5 plus the length, 3, and the height, 2.5 or 2 and 5 tenths, plus 2 times the width is 1 and 5 tenths, and the height we're saying is 2 and 5 tenths. All right, now let's take out our trusty calculators and let's get to work. All right, so we need to find, let's get this thing set up. We're going to find this times this and come up with a value. We're going to find 3 times 2 and 5 tenths and come up with a value. And then we have to find 1 and 5 tenths times 2 and 5 tenths and come up with a value. Now, if you're doing the standard algorithm for this and you don't have a calculator, I want to remind you of how you would do that, and then we'll talk about how do you use a calculator instead. So let's say you had to find the product of these two numbers and you didn't have a calculator. Then off to the side, you would multiply 1 and 5 tenths times 3. We would multiply as though they were whole numbers. 5 times 3 would be 15. 3 times 1 would be 3, plus the 1 would be 4. But you wouldn't put 45 here. Why? Because these are not whole numbers. This is a decimal. This is one position away from being a whole number. So that means we have to move this one position away from being a whole number. So that product would actually be 4 and 5 tenths. But to speed things up, let's use the calculator for the rest. So we're going to find the product of these two numbers, 3 times 2 and 5 tenths. And we get this number, so you're going to write that down. I'm not going to do it for you. You're going to write it down on your piece of paper. And let's find the product of these two numbers. So watch on the calculator, 1 and 5 tenths times 2 and 5 tenths. And see, we get this. So you're going to write that number right here. Now, the next step, what you have to do is you are going to come up with these three numbers, find this times this, come up with a value, find 2 times whatever you have in here, write that number down, find 2 times whatever number you have in here and write that number down. And then the next step is to add all 3 of those numbers. Be careful, watch your decimal, and then you'll choose one of these answer choices. Good luck finishing that up.